So you want to own a church? From the outside, a church can look simple. A building where people gather every week, sing, pray, and listen to a message. But behind those walls is a financial system that most people rarely see. Some churches operate from small rented spaces. Others own large campuses worth millions of dollars. Every week, money flows into these organizations through donations, offerings, and giving. But that money does not simply sit there. It supports employees, pays staff, and keeps the organization running. There are salaries to cover, bills to pay, and responsibilities that come with operating any large organization. Buildings require investment. Mortgages, maintenance, repairs, and improvements all become part of the financial picture. So the real question is not only how does a church receive money? The bigger question is how does a church manage the money that comes in? Today, we're breaking down the economics of owning a church. How churches make money. To understand the economics of owning a church, we first need to follow the money. Where does it actually come from? Unlike a restaurant, a store, or a traditional business, most churches do not make money by selling products or charging people to enter. There is no ticket price at the door. There is no required payment before someone can attend a service. Instead, many churches operate through voluntary giving. Members and supporters contribute through offerings, donations, and tithes. This is the foundation of the financial model for many churches. Today, giving can happen in many ways. Some people donate during services. Others give through online platforms, mobile apps, or recurring payments. The main sources of church income usually fall into a few categories. Regular giving from members. Special offerings or fundraising campaigns. Donations from supporters. And sometimes income from other activities connected to the organization. But church income is different from a normal business. A company can estimate sales based on customers buying products. A church depends on the consistency and generosity of its community. Some people give weekly. Some give monthly. Others contribute during special moments or projects. This means church revenue can change over time. Some months may be stronger than others. Growth in attendance does not always mean growth in income. The financial strength of a church depends on how well it manages its resources and builds long-term support. So the first part of the equation is understanding how money comes in. The next question is even more important. Where does all that money go? Once money starts coming into a church, the next question becomes, where does it actually go? Because collecting money is only one part of the equation. Managing it is where the real financial challenge begins. Just like any large organization, a church has operating expenses. The money coming in has to support people, property, and daily operations. One of the biggest expenses for many churches is people. Pastors, administrators, secretaries, worship leaders, musicians, cleaners, and other staff members all play roles in keeping the organization running. And just like any workplace, employees are paid through payroll. Salaries and compensation become a major part of the budget. Another major expense is property. Churches that own their buildings may have mortgages, loans, or long-term maintenance costs. A building can be a valuable asset, but it also requires continuous investment. Even after a building is fully paid for, the costs do not disappear. Electricity, insurance, repairs, equipment, and improvements all require funding. Every month, churches have ongoing expenses. Utilities, maintenance, technology, security, cleaning, and other costs needed to keep the doors open. Beyond the building, many churches also invest money into community programs, outreach, events, and missions. The goal is not only to maintain an organization, but to support the purpose it was created for. So the financial picture of a church is a balance. Money comes in through giving. Money goes out through operations. And responsible management determines how sustainable the organization becomes. But one question still remains. If a church brings in money and pays expenses, how are pastors compensated? One of the biggest questions people ask when looking at church finances is, how does the person leading the church actually get paid? The answer is that pastors are usually compensated through the same financial system that supports the rest of the organization. A church budget may include salaries for pastors, administrators, and other staff members who work to operate the ministry. Like any professional role, compensation is usually based on responsibilities, experience, the size of the organization, and the resources available. In a smaller church, a pastor may lead a smaller team and receive a more modest salary. Some pastors even serve part-time while working another job. But in larger churches, the financial picture can look very different. A senior pastor of a large organization may oversee thousands of members, multiple staff teams, media operations, and large-scale programs. With greater responsibility often comes greater compensation. However, pastor compensation is usually only one part of the overall budget. A church still has to balance salaries, facilities, programs, and other expenses. The key financial question is not simply, how much does a pastor make? The bigger question is, how does the organization manage its resources responsibly? Because as churches grow, the role of a pastor can expand from leading a small community to managing a complex organization. Now we get to a bigger question. Can owning a church become financially valuable? The first thing to understand is that a church building itself can represent a significant asset. Property has value. A building, land, and facilities can become some of the most valuable resources an organization owns. A church that owns its property has something that many organizations spend years trying to build: a permanent location and a physical asset. As churches grow, their facilities may expand. A small gathering space can eventually become a larger campus with classrooms, offices, event spaces, and additional buildings. But the value of a church is not only in its physical property. A growing organization can also develop valuable systems around its community. Consistent giving, a strong membership base, organized operations, and reliable financial planning. These systems allow an organization to continue operating and expanding. Many churches also invest heavily into programs, education, outreach, and community services. The goal is usually not simply to accumulate money. The resources are often used to support the mission and activities of the organization. This creates an important distinction. A church may own valuable assets and operate with business-like systems. But its purpose is different from a traditional company focused on generating profit for owners. The real measure of financial success is not only what a church owns. It is how effectively it manages the resources entrusted to it. Ministry versus business. What is the difference? At this point, the comparison becomes interesting. A church can look similar to a business in many ways. It has employees. It has budgets. It manages property. It uses technology. And it needs financial planning to survive. Just like any organization, there are costs that must be managed: payroll, facilities, operations, and long-term planning. But there is one major difference: the purpose. A traditional business is usually built around creating profit for owners and investors. A church is generally built around serving a community and supporting a mission. The money system may look similar, but the reason behind the system can be very different. This is why financial management matters. A church needs enough resources to operate effectively, while also staying connected to the purpose it exists to serve. Behind every service, program, and community effort are people, planning, and resources working together. Understanding the economics of a church means understanding both sides: the financial system that keeps it running, and the mission that gives those resources meaning. So, how does a church work financially? At its foundation, the system is built on resources coming in through giving and resources going out through operations. Money comes from donations, offerings, and the support of a community. That money helps pay staff, maintain buildings, fund programs, and keep the organization running. The challenge is creating balance, managing resources responsibly while continuing to serve the purpose of the organization. Behind every church is a system of people, planning, and financial decisions. The economics of owning a church is not only about how much money comes in. It is about how that money is managed, invested, and used to support a larger mission. This is faith economy, where we explore the money, systems, and economics behind faith.